Welcome to Cosentino Canada's first roundtable event, Future Thinking, What's Next in Design. My name is Elizabeth Pagliacolo. I'm the executive editor at Azure Media, which is celebrating its 35th anniversary this year. And I have the pleasure of being your moderator today. We're going to have a great conversation. We have a distinguished panel of industry professionals, and we will keep all attendees busy as well. We will be polling the audience several times throughout the hour, so watch for the polls as we progress. Just some housekeeping items before I introduce our guests. After the Q&A with the panelists, we will have 15 minutes for you to ask your own questions to the panel. For your questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, not the chat box. And now, let me introduce our panelists. First, Teresa Casey is the principal and registered interior designer at Casey Design Planning Group. She is an award-winning designer based in Toronto and a former member of the Southstone Trendspotter program. Next, I will introduce Veronique Cimon, who is the head designer and owner at Payne Cuisines, based out of Montreal. Veronique is a talented member of the design community and an entrepreneur at heart. Thank you for joining us today. Next, we have Meika McCunn, who is a senior associate at Thomas Payne Architect. Meika has led several projects over the course of her 20 years of postgraduate experience as an architect. She has extensive experience, and we're showing a few of her projects here today, in designing for the performing arts and institutional sectors, including her most recent project, a new recital hall and renovations to the Dalhousie Art Center in Halifax. Welcome, Meika. A big hello to Kevin Brooks, who is the principal and owner of Latitude Countertops. Latitude continues to fabricate and install designer surfaces all over Ontario through a network of kitchen and bath dealers, designers, and contractors. Thanks for joining us, Kevin. And last but certainly not least, we welcome Frankie Castro, creative director of Square Footage Custom Kitchens and Bath. Frankie opened Square Footage in 2002 with her husband. She is an award-winning kitchen and bath designer who credits her design sensibilities to her Eurasian upbringing. So, my first question goes out to Veronique. What projects were you working on of the pandemic, and how were you able to pivot given the challenges that were posed by social distancing, the closure of retail, and so on?
Yes, well, as we know, April is a very busy period for all renovation and construction. So we were on several renovation, mostly kitchen and bathroom, and also residential construction. So we focused a lot of the client and see what was their concern, their fear for the next period. And we decided to stay really calm and focus to reorganize the schedule. As for the new client, we were already using video chat and giving a lot of content on social media. We were already offering 3D visual rendering for all our projects. So it was quite easy to pivot on that situation. As you can see, I have two picture projects that you can show on slide. Those two were organized and set up all on virtual tools, and because clients were maybe an hour away for traveling, so we were already experiencing some really good results with the distance. Also, so we were using the video chat to make them feel has a special experience, and we were reaching for this special connection with the client. You know, the video chat could be seen a bit far from everybody, but for us was a cozy experience for the connection and the house homey situation that we were both at our home. So it makes us feel like really close at the end. So yeah, our marketing was focused on virtual consultation, and we were giving a lot of content on live media as Facebook, for the fabric, the layout, and for example, how to take measurement and picture at home. So that would be a really easy way of going forward to do the consultation on a virtual site.
Wonderful. So it sounds like all of these new tools that designers are learning to use have really come in handy.
Yeah.
I'd like to now ask Teresa, given what's happened over the past 4 months, how are you seeing changes in the design world unfold?
Thanks, Elizabeth. I think from the macro perspective that architects and interior designers are reassessing the built environment in both the public and the private realm. And in my opinion, COVID is a design problem of the moment and of the future. Specifically, there's a number of issues I'm going to mention, and one of them would be elder care. I think in response to COVID, we've seen the failure of many public institutions to take care of our seniors. And because of that, we're going to need to reassess how these institutions are designed. And then also, I think there's going to be a push for design solutions for aging at home. People want to stay at their homes, so I think this, especially as the boomers age, is going to be top of mind. Black Lives Matter has highlighted systemic issues with people of color, and one of the issues is poverty and crowded living spaces. So I think this time is an opportunity to address that change, and design can be one of the vehicles for this change. In the realm of personal space, I think spatial challenges and the way we move through space is being reconsidered. Compartmentalization of space, and clients appreciating that their homes, I think, now need to be more flexible and able to accommodate some of the specifics of quarantining at home comfortably, multifamily living, and also being able to have friends and family over safely. I think that we're hyper-aware of everything. Go ahead. I think we're hyper. I'm missing you.
Please go ahead. I was just interrupting you. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I think we're hyper-aware of everything that we touch now. I think we're learning that fresh air is not a luxury, but a necessity. And I think finally that I think people are looking for an emotional connection to both public and private spaces, so that they feel safe and that we meet those needs. And I think especially now, because I think the world is feeling like we have less control of how we move in the world. And if I go into the personal realm, that is a place I think that we as individuals can assert more control. So I think as architects and designers, this is our challenge to respond to this.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up both the larger issues that designers and all of us all face in the public realm, as well as speaking to the private realm as well. And thank you also for bringing up Black Lives Matter, which is a very, very big cause that, we've all been engaged in over the last couple of weeks. And I think it's very important also for the design world to address. So bringing it back to the private realm and the personal home, my next question then is for Veronique. Keeping in mind that the residential space is changing in terms of how we are also emotionally connecting to it these days, how do you foresee design changing to reflect the need for a level of reassurance? For instance, will sanitation of high-touch spaces like the bathroom and kitchen become very important from now on for everyone?
Mm-hmm. Well, clients were already asking for easy, durable, and simple fabric for everyday use. Clients are coming in the office with flooring ideas and countertops. They come at first for the easy use for sure. They're already informed about the end boost of saltstone and the Dicton use. So what I see that changed the most, we were far from those technology with the doors in the kitchen. And now with the synthetic fabric that look more like wood or lacquer paint, we are able to, for example, with Miralis, we use Phoenix. With the nanotechnology, I'll just show you the doors. So it looks like this. And the nanotechnology is a very durable product who helps clients to wash with water, soap, and almost polish the imperfection. I say almost, but it does polish imperfections. So I think the fact that we goes on a higher level with the nanotechnology can helps a lot with the wash. And the door actually offer a really good possibilities for all styles, from traditional to modern, which we didn't have before. So as you can see on those two pictures that I sent you, it's a very cozy home with a lot of wood, and we put countertops with decked-in and synthetic doors. So the client was really on the point that they want to be easy to use, and it goes perfectly well even if it's not real wood. So it will goes on and for a lot of time. So also we have the slab door that goes very popular with the finger grips or other option than handles to open. That makes also easy, really faster and easy to clean when you don't have like moldings and handles in the way. The electric device that has been seen as really fancy before, as the knee push electric for the opening of the garbage section, or the sensor for the light, for example, when it goes in the bathroom, will become a standard offer for us for sure. Probably also the automation of an intelligent house is seen at the KBIS, for example. IDS has a lot of solution for refrigerator or cooktop to make it really easier. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of these in the future, and people will be seeing this as a way to keep their family safe.
Wonderful. I love that you can still inject some warmth into the interior with these wood look finishes, while also having some smart home gadgetry to help you avoid touching anything.
Exactly. We want to have fun.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's all of these different ingredients coming together. Lovely way to think about designing from now on. Teresa, the majority of us quickly realized that our homes were not set up or prepared for long-term confinement because of lack of space, our kitchens having to transform into classrooms, our living rooms becoming our home gyms, bedrooms turned into offices, and so on. That being said, what do you think will be a common trend to come out of how we've been adapting to our home spaces during the pandemic?
So I think that the common trend that I see, and it's just in the spaces that you've described, is that we require flexibility, so that perhaps all of those things need to be incorporated into, if you live in a small space. And I also, I think the outdoor space is really, I think sometimes it gets forgotten. But I think it's just as important as the interior space. And in fact, when I'm designing a new home, the flow from the outside to the inside to outside they're equally as important. And I consider the space planning of the interior of the home very similar or the same as when you're doing the space planning for the exterior of the home. So I think that's a trend, and I thought I would focus on the outdoor space and like some of the things, like I think that especially because we're not going to be traveling as much seemingly in the next couple of years, I've heard from clients that they want to maybe perhaps reassess what their backyard looks like, and wanting things like outdoor kitchens. Ways to stay outside longer, especially in Canada, and in North America in colder climates. So having perhaps like heated floors on a deck, or fire tables to stay warm, or an infrared light system in a pergola. Like I have one client who sent me pictures of them sitting outside in November in their backyard. So I think that those are things, and I think like inside, like Veronique was saying, inside kitchens, resilience of materials, for sure outside, easy care, and things that can withstand very hot weather and very cold weather. So I'll bring up the first slide to show you this plan. So one of the things when you look at this plan is that there is a separate entrance up where the plan, the word plan is, that's a separate entrance into this garden space. And inside the studio, there is a washroom. So, and I'm speaking to having guests over and not only accommodating the householder owner's needs, but also being able to have family and friends over in a safe way through COVID. There's a variety of sitting areas to accommodate different members of the family, but also having friends over and having the 6 feet distance. Cooking area is up at the top where the dining area is. And then there's a fountain in the center, which I think is a very calming element to engage, put into a space, especially now, because I think that people need those, I need emotional sustenance from their space. So if we go to the next slides, you'll see what the space looks like. If we have our next slide right now, would be great. So yeah, you can see that a couple of things I want to point out. So there's a green wall on the far left side, which gives us a sense of enclosure and holds the space in. And I think that's something that's very comforting for people. There's a sitting area at the top. There were specifically planned so that when you're sitting inside the house, there's a beautiful view to the fountain on the outside. Because I think the garden should be year-round. Like I think that they should nurture us all the way around, and not just be only looking from the outside in, but the inside out. And then if you look on the picture on the right, where those French doors are, this is actually my garden. This was our garage actually, and I put those doors in to make access from the garden. In fact, another client that I'm working with, we are doing a full house renovation, but we're putting a pool into their backyard. And for their cabana for the pool, I suggested for them, why not have that be as an alternate guest suite for friends and family when they want to come. So I think there's, as I speak to that kind of flexibility component that I think people are looking for, and also nurturing. I think that when spaces are work for people, then I think there's a happiness quotient that is risen, and that they really affect people in a positive way. And that is, for me, the priority for me, and what I feel is kind of our challenge, especially for COVID time.
So it looks like now we're ready for our first audience question. And the question is, Cosentino would like some feedback about this. Cosentino showrooms are now open. To keep your projects moving, when do you plan on visiting showrooms? There's going to be a little poll that pops up on your screen. We'll leave it up for 30 seconds, and you can easily answer that questionnaire now. So moving along, I'd like to bring our architect into the mix, Meika. How do you see vertical high-rise living and commercial spaces changing in terms of the challenges that people are going to be facing, such as riding elevators, sharing common spaces, taking the stairs, those sorts of problems that have arisen over the last few months?
Thanks, Elizabeth. And first of all, I would just like to thank Cosentino for this opportunity to allow me to participate in this roundtable. This is a very interesting and needed discussion that we're having. Relating to your question, I would say that programming of buildings, particularly commercial buildings, is going to be very important moving forward. Circulation through buildings, high-rise buildings, is very tricky. So I think by creating an opportunity for buildings to be programmed on a 24/7 basis, allowing staggered work times so that people can start and come into the building at different times, is going to be important. And along with that path of travel, elevatoring up as much as possible and taking the stairs down. I know it's not really feasible when you're on the 60th floor of a building, but at least the lower levels could accommodate that. And I think it already does occur in a lot of the commercial buildings, but maybe residential buildings could start doing this, where certain elevators are just designated to certain floors. It just allows people to have segregated areas to circulate where we're not crossing over. And lobby spaces, I think how we look at lobby spaces is going to be very important. Now we're living in the era where we just depend on deliveries to the buildings constantly. And as you walk down the streets, you walk past lobby spaces and you see boxes piled in the lobbies, and it's not particularly attractive. And I think we have to consider spaces for delivery areas.
Follow up, as things begin to open and new builds and renovations start to take place, how do you anticipate the changes that may come when planning designs for these new spaces?
I think how we look at the building cores is going to be very important. As architects, we're always looking to minimize, particularly when we're talking about these high-rise buildings, minimum sizes of elevators, minimum sizes of elevator cores, minimum amount of elevators. And I think we have to take a different approach and look at maximizing space and using space as efficiently as possible. And that might mean more elevators, bigger elevator cores, bigger elevator cabs themselves. Along with that, I think water corridor spaces, I know, just referring to my building, we don't have the space in a corridor to maintain the optimal social distancing. And I'd rather not have to turn my face to the wall when I'm passing someone in a corridor. So I think we really need to think about these spaces and how they're used and how we can still maintain social interaction with people while maintaining social distancing. And I think I mentioned it a little bit in the previous question about the ground floors, how we look at the ground floors of buildings in these lobby spaces and thoughtfully design areas for loading and areas for deliveries so that we can share the spaces with, programming for gathering, but also necessary functional programs of the building. And also, if we're talking about this path of travel through buildings, and as I mentioned previously, this idea of encouraging people to elevator up and take the stairs down, I think we need to look at exit stairs and beautifying them and making them more attractive and, interesting places that we want to be in. So it'll encourage that circulation.
So beyond the functional aspects of making these buildings, a lot more conducive to people being able to keep apart, what are the more exciting design opportunities for future architectural developments?
I think, this idea of circulation and choreography of movement through space is something that architects can really have fun with. There's some architects like Rem Koolhaas who he does that with his buildings now. There's often this very clear idea of circulation throughout the building, and I think as architects we can design architectural cues that allow this to happen and is more interesting for people using the building. And I think this concept of, I mentioned it, in our discussions previously, of a grand entrance and grand exit, that we often design these really grand entrances for public buildings, but the exits aren't really thought of. And sometimes we exit through the same space that we enter through. But if we're looking at this concept of a one-way path of travel, that maybe we design really, equally as grand exits as we do entrances. And, that becomes a really interesting and exciting architecture we can look at.
I love that idea. I love the idea of the grand exit, leaving on a high note. So now let's talk about public spaces or public and commercial spaces. So restaurants, bars, shops, grocery stores, entertainment venues. How do you think they will win the trust of patrons at the architectural level while feeling safe, without discomfort?
Yeah, this is really challenging, and we're all experiencing this. I get anxious when I go into, particularly like a grocery store, and it's not clearly indicated to me which way I am supposed to travel through the building. So I think clear wayfinding is going to be key. And also, as architects, we can design architectural cues that allow people to move in a certain direction that, aren't as completely obvious as putting the arrow on the floor. But, you know, I think those are things that we have to do moving forward. I think, you know, creating interesting ways to divide spaces. I mean, now it's the plexiglass divider that we see everywhere, but, you know, as architects, we're going to be challenged to think about ways to, you know, create a physical barrier when needed, you know, between people, but also do it in an interesting and, you know, not in a sort of isolating way. And it was mentioned earlier by Veronique, use of hygienic materials. I think that is, we're getting questions and we're being asked to look at that now. And, you know, for some of our projects is materials that are easily cleaned. You know, natural stone is nice, but you can't use the, you know, the heavier cleaners on it. So, and detailing in ways that, you know, things don't collect dust and that sort of thing. And just speaking about, I have a slide speaking about performing arts buildings, which is something that our studio at Thomas Payne Architects specialize in. The first two images of Massey Hall and Kerner Hall are projects that I worked on while I was with KPMB. And the lower images, the left and the right, from left to right, is a performing arts recital hall that we're working on currently at Dalhousie, and also a green room at the Dr. Phillips Center, which is a jazz room. And for the jazz room, we were actually asked by the client to look at how we would actually deal with this idea of social distancing. And I think one thing in looking at performing arts buildings, integrating this, and you know, we're often asked to do this, but I think we're going to be asked to do more, is this concept of flexibility. By having seats that are removable or movable, it allows you to create different seating arrangements that can provide the social distancing that's necessary. And also, I think technology is absolutely key in all performing arts venues. I mean, that's the reason why we go to performing arts venues, is to feel, you know, to experience that live performance and, you know, feel like we're in a room where we're sharing that experience with other people. And I think that shared experience can be held by many more people through the use of technology. So we're being asked, and this is just going to be, you know, the norm, to fit out all of these rooms with cameras and broadcast equipment. So, you know, we can all experience these performances moving forward.
Wonderful. It's it seems like almost like a dream to be able to enter into a performance venue and, you know, experience an inspiring concert or play. So I'm looking forward to your innovation. We do have another question that we want to send out to the audience. The question is, when the government fully opens our economy, are you planning on attending events at Cosentino showrooms? We'll, once again, we'll leave the poll up for 30 seconds, and we look forward to everyone's thoughts on that. So now I'd like to hear from the fabricator side of things. Kevin, what's your outlook in terms of business these days?
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. My outlook is optimistic, but I'm a naturally optimistic person. I have this outlook because we're seeing an uptick in quotations, so about 30 to 33% of an uptick. And I think if I go back to what Teresa said, she said people are looking for an emotional connection to spaces. And so we find that people are coming and asking for more projects in their home, not just a kitchen or a bath, but vertical applications like full splashes, fireplaces and such. And they're really invested and committed to these projects. Now, we could infer that it's because they're not going to be spending their money traveling, or that they're just in their space and they have that emotional connection to it. So with this optimistic approach, though, it's very measured because it's a challenge. Let's be real, the pandemic gave a lot of challenges for us, and people are really at the heart of what we do, whether it's design or architect, our installation crews, our fabrication team. And it's a real challenge to mitigate processing a large number or a high volume of design projects like we do. So it's a measured approach, but it's a very optimistic one.
Okay, great. And speaking of your installation teams, have you heard any news or design response from plumbing or appliance manufacturers that are taking new factors into consideration by offering new solutions for kitchen and bath integration?
Well, touchless or sensory faucets have been in the marketplace for the better part of this decade. Blanco, Moen, Delta, Kohler, Flow, to name a few, they have several options for it. I believe we may see an increased awareness at the consumer level if these manufacturing brands promote them and market them. But there's something that's very important to this, and it's the designer and the contractor and those people specifying the project. Now, as a fabricator, we come on the scene very late in the game, where design specifications, appliance choices, fixtures, they've already been committed to. So for us, it's an 1 3/8 hole size for the faucet. But if you're moving into those technologies, I would consider, how are you powering those? Is there an AC transformer required, or is it battery? And put that into the thinking that happens while you're planning the space. And I really think maybe Frankie could speak more to this, because those decisions happen in the showroom.
Right. Okay. Well, we are going to move on to Frankie now, who's been very patiently sitting by. What parameters, the first question we have you is, what parameters do you have in place for the showroom for people who are visiting your showroom at square footage?
I think that's already been witnessed, in any of us that have gone out shopping recently. There's hand sanitizers at the door. Quite often you require an appointment, so we're doing those basic kind of things already.
Okay. And so what about the digital aspect? Digital has become paramount with several mandatory closures. Do you see how the public... do you see any ways in which the public-facing showroom will change in terms of that digital, physical interaction?
Well, I think we've learned a great deal over the past 4 months, and we've learned how to be agile, and we've learned how to offer services in many different ways to our clients. As many of you have mentioned already on the panel, digital was one of the ways that we jumped to fairly quickly. And now that the showrooms are open, having personal appointments for people to come in and meet with us. So when the clients are coming in, what we found is that a lot of our clients were really missing their communities. So one of the really nice uptakes with having a showroom in a local neighborhood is I found a lot of our clients have started to shop really locally, which is a wonderful benefit for all the businesses that have suffered through the pandemic. So also in the fact that they're missing their community, we found that they're staying longer. They're chatting with us for a longer period of time. And they're getting a lot more personal with us when they come into the showroom. I think that, the onset of that is that we've been locked in our kitchens for about 3 or 4 months now. And now we have a real awareness of just how multifunctional our kitchens really are. So whereas before clients would, be out on a walk and say, oh, that's an interesting place, let's walk in and have a look at that. We don't find that that's happening anymore. But when you're making an appointment, shopping as for entertainment has really changed dramatically. So clients are coming in much more aware. They're coming with specific shopping lists for what they want in their kitchens. And so they're coming as a very well-educated consumer about what they need now. So it's been really interesting for us to see that switch, whereas they're saying, oh, I must have granite countertops. Now they're saying, I need touchless faucets. I need easy clean surfaces. I want things that are, bacterially non-transferable. So I think there's been a greater education. And when this whole thing started, I really wondered when we jumped to digital meetings, how that would affect our showrooms. And what I've learned is that, as Meika has said earlier, there's a lot of nonverbal communication that goes on between a space and a client. And there are things that we don't speak about to a client, but when you walk into a showroom, you perhaps get a feeling, oh, this feels very cozy, or this feels very modern. I like how this feels. So there's a lot of nonverbal communication going on about, maybe the corporate values of this company, how you invite somebody into your showroom. Do you offer them coffee and cookies? How gracious you are. All that nonverbal communication you just don't necessarily get in a digital meeting. So now that we've had the opportunity to do both, I think we will always do both and go hand in hand. So I don't actually see the showroom ever going away. I see it actually becoming more entrenched and part of the community now.
Wonderful. I want to bring in the other participants into this conversation about that, the sense of community and connectivity and the need to actually, touch the product, the need for tactility and so on. And all of this, from what you've said, Frankie, it sounds like all of these factors are also what help build relationships between the showroom or the designer and the client. So I'm wondering if anyone else wants to comment on that, on how you're, approaching that and how you're making up for the sort of the lack of touch and those cues that we only get in person. So Veronique, it sounds like you have an anecdote to share.
Well, I think Frankie is absolutely right when she says that we need to do both. I found that some clients were really stressed about business hours of the showroom or the traveling. And I did one consultation virtually with them, and they were like in pajamas with kids around, and they were able to take a lot of great decisions without any stress. So they were enjoying the process, and they said that they can be in their kitchen while we were talking, so they can see and really think what their needs were about. So just follow with me with their cell phones and check this out. I don't like this part because of this. It's not functional. So we were able to maybe do all the result, the same result by distance. So that was a really nice touch. I think Frankie is really right about the feeling and the ambience in a showroom. What we think that it's just a little bit more interesting and when we make private session, so the client comes into the office and they're alone, so there's nothing else going on around, and they feel like maybe a bit more glamorous for example for this session. So I think this is really cool too. Yeah.
Anybody else want to speak to that?
Well, one way I've been able to do things is have like a finishes package that I courier over to a client if we're not able to meet in person, and then by meeting through Zoom, so then we can see each other and we can talk about that together. I have a set of samples, they have a set of samples, so I think that's a nice way to bridge how you communicate. And I mean, I certainly was not that user-friendly with the Zoom before all this started. But one of the things I love about that is to be able to bring up drawings on and share my screen with my clients, because that I think is a great tool for communicating. So I think those are kind of like some of the tools that I've developed through this time. And I think those are here to stay.
Yeah, I can just second that. That's what we've been doing at TPA is we have presentations online, and we'll very carefully curate exactly the materials that we want, to send to the clients. And in a strange way, this allows us to sort of focus in on exactly what we present to the clients. So it's not like, just a barrage of materials and concepts. Is very curated. So in a strange way, it allows us to focus a little bit more. But yes, the following up with a materials board, so that what they see on the screen, they actually have, a little sample in person to review.
Great. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I was going to follow upon what Meika said. And I don't know if you can see behind me the natural organic movement of the splash, which is actually decked on. Well, you curate that collection of colors and you have your specifications, but there's a vision. So for us, we're moving into 3D visualization software to actually take your layout and show it to a client. So you can see where pieces will be seamed. Veronique, your island countertop in the second set, I'm not sure if it was Domus or a Radium Decton. I'm thinking it's one of those two colors. It was stunning, and it was a full slab. There was no seam. But as kitchens have increased in size and places for families to meet, Well, these details for us, setting the expectation is very important. And so moving into that digital world and using high resolution photos to map the architecture of a space is definitely, it's timely, but it really does work. It works far better than the Zoom appointment I tried to do a slab mapping for, walking around a granite slab or a natural stone slab.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. You can't do that so easily.
You're absolutely right, Kevin. Clients need to see it in actual, like what it's actually going to look like, not just a piece of material. They need to see what it looks like in the space, and a rendering is the best way that we can do, right now, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like you're doing exactly what designers do best, which is problem solving, and you're finding the opportunities in sort of the really trying times that you're having to work through. So I commend everybody for doing that. We do have one last question for the audience. So the question is, when the government, oh, sorry, I already asked that question, didn't I? Oh no, this is about trade shows. Sorry, everyone, this is a glitch from my brain. When the government fully opens their economy, are you planning on attending trade shows? So once again, that poll's gonna pop up and you have 30 seconds to answer. And so I'm going to thank everybody for participating today before we sort of open it up to the Q&A session. It looks like we have a number of questions from our audience. So thank you so much to all of you for your really insightful, thoughtful answers, and thank you to Cosentino. So we're going to open up the Q&As, and I believe we're going to have a few of them read out loud.
Yes, this is where the anonymous voice comes in and reads the question. The first question is for Kevin. Kevin, have you had any more requests to use Cosentino products for more facades, for cabinetry, walls, large appliances, etc., considering people want easier to clean surfaces?
The answer is hard yes. And again, I think Teresa, Veronique, maybe Frankie, we all see that outdoor spaces and outdoor kitchens are there. So cladding cabinetry in the outdoor and outdoor surfaces, those fire pits, there are particular uses. Decton's a very innovative product, and so it works in that environment. And I'm telling you, I've lived with it for 2 years now myself, and I'm still in love with it. So there's definitely some extreme interest.
Good, and great opportunity. The next question is for Teresa. Teresa, could you expand upon how you will see design change for living in place other than just accessible products? How does kitchen design change?
So I would say that hardware, in terms of being able to access drawers and upper cabinets so that you can easily open them, and like even maybe touchless drawers on the bottom. And so I would say that would be one thing. And I think the faucets, again, I think just to instead of having to turn them on and on, I think just to have the wave of the hand, I think will be something that would be incorporated into kitchens. And same with the lighting. I think it's to make it as user-friendly and simple as possible. And I see things really being streamlined so they're easy to clean, so that the person living at home isn't bogged down with a lot of fussy details. So those are the couple of things that I think. And I also think for just even if you're in a wheelchair or you're in a walker, so that there's a space allowed for easy access to the kitchen. And perhaps, even like heights of like an island, the standard height might be 36 inches, but, if you are already, maybe you're quite short, that you might consider having the counters being a bit lower and easier to access.
Okay, great. The next question is for Veronique. First of all, you got a really great compliment. Someone wrote, "What a beautiful interior with the project that featured Decton and the wood." How do you assist your clients to choose the countertops, and what are you steering them towards now?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, absolutely. The doors and the countertops are usually the first thing I'm coming through. So we're talking about the finish, the use of different finish, the color as well. But, you know, the finish with the matte finish now in the Decton is different. So I'm starting my consultation by making them touch the fabric. So making sure that they understand it will be different from a polished one that they probably have at home. And as the matte finish is really popular, I'm going also with the doors in matte. The velour touch is really nice. So I think I'm starting with the Pinterest with the client or with the website when they can see a lot of picture and they just told me what they like, what they doesn't like. So when we can start with maybe a size of 3 doors collection and 3 countertops, and then they can make their choices. And after that, we're making all the rest of the selection with the accessories, the flooring, and the metal finish if we need it. So I'm starting to ask questions about how they are going to use it, and also if they want more character in their design or a more soft touch. So a more something with the light on or with more black and bold color. So yeah, I'm going always with 1 or 2 questions so we can go in section, and after we've finalized the project with the accessories. So.
Great. Next question is for Meika. First of all, you had a big shout out for suggesting people take the stairs for both social distancing and workouts. So that's good. But the question is, there are so many existing condo buildings and multi-unit facilities in places like Toronto and Vancouver. How feasible is it to retrofit?
Yeah, retrofit is, I think, really challenging. I think in terms of, you know, widening exit stairs, that may be challenging because I think, you know, unless you're adding physical space to a building or taking out a unit, I don't know how feasible that would be, but making the stairs just more attractive and, you know, I keep referring to my building, they're exit stairs. They have, you know, bad fluorescent lighting, you know, just plain painted finishes. And, you know, I don't enjoy walking out through the exit stair. So if we, you know, have, I think, elevated finishes, so at least, you know, it feels like a space you want to be in, I think that would encourage people to use them a little bit more. And yes, you know, the exercise is the added benefit that we, you know, get to enjoy by taking the stairs.
Okay, great. This question is for Frankie. Veronique addressed smart home products, but how do you feel technology will play a factor in the future of design?
I think it'll play a very big future in design. And I think as we have an aging population, even some simple things like how you can perhaps talk to your appliances will be easy for us to move along. Like now we have Siri's and we have, you know, the Google Dots and all that. So those kind of technologies are already existing, and simpler ones I think will move forward. How you can have your ranges, not your ranges, but your heating elements move around in your countertop, how countertops can be heated and cooled off for cool surfaces or hot surfaces. So I think those are all coming, and I think they're going to be very exciting.
Excellent. Another question for Meika. Have you heard of any new ideas or new layouts, features for restrooms, playgrounds, dining rooms in daycare centers and schools?
Well, I personally have not designed daycare centers or schools, but in terms of restrooms, I think what's really interesting is that over the last several years, there's been things that have come into effect, AODA regulations, accessibility regulations that we've had to provide in new buildings. And essentially that means, washrooms that are bigger and, allow for people with disabilities. And I think just those code requirements that we actually have to meet for new buildings really, makes the spaces just more accessible for everyone. And in terms of, washrooms, I think for not only people with disabilities, but also mothers with children as well, change tables that are, just an unnecessary part of these washrooms so that, everybody has access to them.
Okay, great. I think we have time for one more question. If anyone wants to type into the Q&A, you have about 30 seconds to do that as I address this question. And this question is for Kevin. What specific new developments have you heard of that are thought to be integrated more and more in the kitchen? For example, waving, voice control systems, etc.
Well, one that I'm very excited about is invisible induction cooking. And again, I go back to the innovation with Decton or similar products where you can mount the induction hardware beneath the countertop and then use induction cooking through it. And as we think about, someone just mentioned, there's a large number of condominium and high-rise developments in Toronto and Vancouver. Think about the reduced counter space that putting a cooktop in or a sliding range or a conventional appliance. Or those who like gas cooking, but would really like to boil water in 2 minutes. You can have an induction device right in, buried, and it won't take up counter space. So it's really lending itself towards lifestyle. I love to stay in my kitchen and cook, and having more counter space for prep and not having to see an appliance. Some of them are very sexy, but not all. So I'm really excited about that, the invisible induction.
Great, and I think we're through our questioning. Elizabeth, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you to our audience members for suggesting such great questions. It sounds like everybody has a project out there that they're working on and are looking to our panelists for advice, which is always great. Once again, I would just like to thank everybody on the panel, Meika McCunn, Kevin Brooks, Teresa Casey, Frankie Castro, Veronique, Cimon. Thank you so much for participating, for sharing your experiences, and for prognosticating about what the future might hold. I know it's a question that's it's very difficult to answer on so many levels, but you're all working in realms where you actually are answering those questions on an everyday basis. So, and I also, once again, would like to thank Cosentino for hosting this talk, and thank you to everyone who listened in. Have a great day, everyone.